Howdy. Hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hope everyone's having a great afternoon.
No, Steven and I were talking about how tired we are because, well, for me, the Mexican restaurant right by my house, it's like half a block away. For some reason, they decided to clean the dumpster out at 4:45 a.m. So, and it took 45 minutes of just banging, clanging, and trucks backing up.
Yeah,
Why they had to do
that's
it
annoying.
then? They
I
opened
would,
lunch at noon. Like, it's not like they had to do it before breakfast.
yeah. At that early, I would easily fall back asleep, which still
Sleep
kind of.
later, Mexican restaurant people. Sleep later.
And then
Tiny kitty.
I always make a habit of ruining any sleep pattern I might have developed throughout the week on the weekends. So Monday comes around. I slept till about 10 and I had 10:15. I had a meeting to run at 10:30, so good 15 minutes to prepare. Tiny kitty or yeah, is it tiny kitty?
She's tiny kitty. She
It says
hates
tiny mouse. No.
She doesn't like that. She doesn't like that. Yeah, so we're both tired. So hopefully chat will wake us up a little.
For real. Anyway, I saw Coro had gifted a membership, so thank you very much,
Thank
Coro.
you, Coro. And he also inquired, why are these plants so thirsty?
I know.
I know. I mean, our plants aren't thirsty. They
And
may have other
then
problems, but they're not thirsty.
this is a name I don't recognize. Small time tanks. Don't know if you've seen them around, but in any case, welcome.
Welcome. We love having new people. Feel free to
Indeed.
chat, ask questions, lurk. These are all good options. So
Chat's good. Questions are good.
they're all good. Yeah.
Because we have a topic, but like, how long are we going to spend on talking about
How long are we going to stay on topic? We don't have a good track record.
No, at least hopefully we won't take like an hour to get to the topic, like sometimes we tend to do.
Sometimes we do. I mean, but sometimes the topic is not that exciting. So, you know,
Zinger $4 cup of coffee.
says wake
Super
up.
sticker. Wake up.
I mean, we've been paid to wake up, so now we must do it. It's the story of our lives. We're paid to be awake.
I did have a cup of coffee today, but I had about half the coffee beans of what I normally ground and brew,
Oh.
so it was like a weak cup of coffee.
Jake always says that, like, when you're tired but you have caffeine, it just makes you excited about being awake.
And then there's a certain point where you have like an existential crisis of anxiety about being awake and wonder if you're going to be awake forever.
I don't really
You have
have.
too much coffee.
I don't have the issues that you do. I never drink that much caffeine, for one, because I can't handle it. So I in general sleep pretty well, unless the Mexican restaurant has decided to clean out their dumpster. So
I sleep well as long as I've got the right mixture of chemicals to counteract the chemicals to stay awake.
I have to have like the right mixture of cats. Are they stomping on me? Are they cat battling in the other room? Or are they just asleep? You never know.
Yep, Zen. So I'm either sleepy, cranky, and anxious, or I'm awake, cranky, and anxious.
I wouldn't describe myself as cranky or anxious. It's not. But today I'm kind of tired, so.
Well, we're both slow today, and so it's a good theme for the topic.
It's what you get. That's right. Nancy agrees the right mixture of cats is important. It's so true. They can make or break things. Oh my
June,
goodness, June,
10
you
membership.
wild woman. Thank you.
That's great timing because today we're shipping out the last of the member plants from the previous form,
Nice.
and then sometime this month I will be releasing the new form.
Nice. I mean, I guess I got my member plant because I got my canna lily, which I gave to you and you gave it back. That was good.
So a lot.
It was my Louisiana storage program.
That works.
I know if the orange canna does well and some other things, I'm gonna also send them to you to overwinter.
So I think this coming form will probably be similar. One thing I know that I'm going to add to the form because it just sort of snuck up on me in growth is all the Saswassertang I have.
Ah, this is Fossatong.
Now, if like 50 people requested, that's going to be a problem, but I've got a good bit.
Also, a problem for those 50 people because you'll get Sasfosatong, which is a terrible plant. It's
But
terrible.
if you don't have CO2, it is a slow grower. Like essentially will do nothing, but it'll do so little that you'll forget you have it. It'll kind of float around the tank, wedge itself in a corner, and then one day you'll like reach behind the tank and realize you have like a softball sized clump of it.
You have to be careful what you wish for, though, because you will never get rid of it. If you get it, you will have it forever. So just think about it. Like, do you want it in every tank? Or do you
Yep.
want to confine it to a tank? Make good decisions. Because I have never wanted it, and yet I have it.
All of my Saswassertang growth is in the tank that I deliberately removed it from. I used to have a little bonsai tree with Saswassertang all
That's not
around it,
right.
and I took that out. But I was in there for at least a year, and so it's like a fern, so it puts off little fronds. It detaches
Yeah,
itself whether you want it to or not, and
right.
then it just floats around the tank. It'll just sit there behind a plant, or in my case, I have a little rock wall in the background, and it's perfect for just like wedging itself there. And now I've got it growing all over. You can see it in the tank behind me, like just huge clumps of it all down the wall.
Huge crumbs. Jenna says, everyone, please predict what other people will put on the form and spread out your requests using your psychic powers.
That would be helpful. I think I'll try to
Already
monitor the
set up.
form, and I will remove things as I feel like they're like oversaturated. Like
Yeah.
Hygrophila polysperma, the sunset. I probably should have been watching for that one because the reason it's taken us so long to ship out plants this time is because I took that out of CO2 and started growing it elsewhere, and
Right.
it got really popular. But that's okay. It will not be a problem this time, so don't worry about it. It'll be on the list. It's
Got
back
it.
in CO2 and is invasive as holy
This
hell.
it's hell. Yeah. It's please don't send me that plant. I don't want it. I guess I'll just throw it out if you send it to me.
Yeah, just
So
check for it like you would check for duckweed.
that's right. I mean, I don't if you have CO2, it's not a great choice because it's so fast.
Yeah.
That is
Now,
not the topic.
no,
Not the topic.
topic is the opposite. So not yet, June. There is a new list coming this month. So I saw a question mark from Nathan. That helps me see questions. Is it recommended to take apart needle valves
Oh
on
god.
CO2 systems once in a while? Mine seems to be sticking a little lately. I have never taken mine off. I wouldn't know how to put it back together,
No.
and yeah, that would scare me to do
That's
that.
the sign of a bad regulator. If you have a needle valve that's sticky, it means you don't have a good regulator. And I'm very sorry.
Is this the
Um,
regulator that's attached to that DIY CO2 kit, which I don't remember what brand it was?
yeah, I wouldn't trust it. I don't I don't do any maintenance to my CO2 system beyond refilling it and starting it again. And I do have to refill my bubble counters because I fill them with water. Even if you fill them with, what do you use, mineral oil or glycerin?
Mineral oil.
Mineral, it's still, you have to refill them sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's been a while though. Like it,
Yeah.
I don't remember when I filled it, but I haven't had to refill it since. The
Yeah.
last time I had to do it is I replaced. I had an F zone regulator that had 3 manifolds on it, and it was working fine at first, and then I started getting pressure drops, which I guess is better than like dumping all the CO2 in the tank. It went the opposite direction, but when I start seeing inconsistency, I figure it's time to replace that regulator, and I got a SR Aquaristics, and it's
Yeah, I
fantastic.
mean, here's the thing. Here's the story. I always tell everyone I was in grad school. I had no money. I wanted a bargain. I bought a used Milwaukee regulator, and that thing was never good. It was always hard to get dialed in. It would take days to get it dialed in. It never held steady. It was never good. And then one day it did something called end of tank dump. And it dumped like a full pound of CO2 between 2 aquariums, and it killed every fish and shrimp I owned,
Oof.
including the most beautiful Pracox rainbows that you have ever seen in your life. And I quit the hobby for a couple years. So don't cheap out on your regulator. Like, I know it's more money and I know money can be tight. I would say that no CO2 is better than a cheap regulator, because you
Yeah.
can be happy and safe with no CO2. You can still grow plants, but if you get a cheap regulator, and someone out there's gonna be like, well, I have an F zone and mine works great. Well, yeah, okay, maybe
Yeah,
yours.
I do have an F zone and it works great, but it's in the bedroom. I do like monitor it a lot.
Yeah,
And I've replaced 2 other F zones. So I know
right.
it's coming.
I mean, and you don't have it on like your rainbows.
Nope.
So, I mean, if it failed, you'd be sad, but you move on with your life, and
It wouldn't be a I quit
right.
type of loss for sure.
Yeah, and Zenny says if there's no fish, whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Whatever. That's fine. But who among us has the discipline to keep a tank with no fish or shrimp in it? I mean, come on, what's the point? What's the fun? I mean, and I say that as a person who loves plants.
I did that for like a month. Had a tank with no fish in it. It's
And then
hard.
you're like, I could put fish in there.
Yeah.
I mean, so you so I get it. I mean, I have been budget constricted, but take the time to save up for a good regulator, because a good regulator is a one-time purchase. It will last you for decades.
For sure.
So, and you can run multiple tanks on it if you get the right kind, because if you get the kind that you can put manifolds on, you can run, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 tanks on them. At a certain point, it gets a little ridiculous, but you can run a lot of tanks on them. I mean, I'm running 2 on one regulator, and it's
Most I've done is 3.
Yeah. I've heard of people doing more than that. At a certain point, you're kind of out of control, and the manifold gets a little ridiculous. But I would say that 3, 4, not a problem. So, yeah.
So I
Slow plants.
I just say I took pictures.
Oh.
I took them in the sense that I stole the pictures off the internet. I took them off the internet because I didn't feel like going around taking photos of. I have a lot of these plants, but one of my favorite slow growers for its color, after I finally like got it to cooperate for me, is Alternanthera. This happens to be Renekii Mini,
Yeah.
which is an extra slow grower.
I mean, I don't find AR Mini that slow. For some reason, I'm pretty good at Alternantheras. I don't know why that is. I would say for a stem, it is very slow. However,
Yeah,
compared
my
to the
stem.
other slow growers on our list,
Right. This is not one where it feels like it's doing nothing, but it is slow enough that you can call it like you can keep it in the foreground and it not go out of control, because like it will grow, like it will keep growing tall like a stem plant, just a little more compact and more slowly.
The last time I had it, I still did trim it every month, but it's slow enough that I'm willing to tolerate it.
Yeah.
And I don't say that about many stem plants because I don't like stem plants.
And this is in CO2. This is one of those plants that that people claim does not need CO2,
Oh
but
my God.
like injection, it needs low KH if you don't
Yeah, I mean, so
inject CO2.
if you have Seattle soft water KH 0 or 1 out of the tap, you can grow it. But if you have water like mere mortals, like I do, KH 6, it's not going to grow without CO2. In fact, when my CO2 runs out, it just melts. Like it starts to look transparenty and just melts. And it will come back if I put CO2 on it. But it really needs it. It really does. So,
Yeah, it's kind of annoying how a lot of that plants that don't need CO2 advice comes from these places that have this magic water.
yeah. So June says she can put red plants with the wild Oscars. Hmm. Well, and June has super soft water right out of the tap. So, I guess if your Oscars don't destroy it, then you can grow this plant. So,
Zen says, I like all the slow growers, and it's horrible. It means algae is going to win. I hate stems, but I think they're the only thing keeping the slow growers from succumbing to the green monster. Yeah, that is one issue, is when you mix slow growers with or slow growers with things that require high light, and you don't have the perfect magical water. That's when the algae is like, ooh, look at all these excess nutrients and all this light I can take
I
advantage
don't
of.
have a single fast grower in either tank and no algae because those tanks are very imbalanced.
Yep.
And they always have, I mean, this one has gone through one little period of about 6 weeks where it was fussy. This one has been rock steady the day I set it up. But
The 90, yeah.
yeah, it's always been pretty good. Thanks, Annette. I think a good strategy, if you don't like fast growers like I don't, and you want to have a lot of slow growers, but your tank is kind of breaking in, is to have one super, super fast grower to help get you over the hump. So when I first started this tank, I had the Hygrophila corymbos, the cherry leaf, which is absurd. It's so fast.
And yep, and it's got a lot of mass to it too.
I
So
got rid of it after maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, because I was like, oh God, no more. Yeah. So, but it did get it over that hump. So I think that in a brand new tank, it is nice to have one fast grower, and that's good enough. I've seen what's his name, George Farmer, when he's setting up a new tank, he had a pot of Limnophila sessiflora, which isn't that called like Ambularia 2 or something?
Yeah.
Super fast grower, and he didn't even take it out of the pot. He just threw the pot in there and let it do its thing to help balance the tank, with the idea that he would get rid of it. So then he says I'm probably not an overfeeder either. I have fat little fishies and no self-control. Yeah, I'm not an overfeeder. I'm not. In fact, I've just recently started upping the amount I feed my fish, because I'm like, God, Steven's fish are so much fatter than mine. And
I don't feel like I overfeed
maybe I
that
should
much.
feed more. Well, rainbows are hungry and they do want to grow. So I have been feeding quite a bit more, but it's still probably not as much as other people do. So, I was just my whole life, my dad, he's like, don't feed much, don't feed much. Give the fish just a tiny amount. So I don't know. I guess I'm mean. So
Thorntrap can't get rid of fairy moss. Is that Azolla?
Yes, I think so. I think it's Azolla, and that's a scourge, like duckweed. Yeah, that's hard to get rid of.
Yeah, I have some of that, but it mostly grows. Like I have some of it growing on wood in the puffer tank.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, speaking of which, I got 2 puffers coming tomorrow for the I ordered two more friends for the spotted Congo.
Oh, she'll like that. Do you like how I pop my top? Oh, it was pretty good.
Nice ASMR.
Nice. Wow, 2 more puffers. That's so exciting. She's gonna love that.
I hope so.
Work says that Isola has a symbiotic relationship with bacteria and pulls nitrogen from the atmosphere like legumes do. That's cool. So
Sweet.
I wonder if it uses leg hemoglobin or some other bacteria. So what is it? The nitrosifying bacteria. It's not coming to me right now, but it has a compound it makes called leg hemoglobin, which is structurally very similar to hemoglobin in our blood, but it binds nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen, and cleaves that bond. And it's slightly reddish. So, but I bet it uses, I wonder if it uses a different pathway. It would have evolved convergently, so evolved independently, because their common ancestor does not do that. They are very, very far apart. But that's pretty cool.
Interesting.
I'm excited about these puffers, though. Wow.
Me too. I'm actually, I
Those big
think they're
purchase.
having them shipped to a UPS store so they don't cook
Oh,
in
that's
the
good.
truck.
That's good, because nobody wants to risk.
Hell no. Yeah, it's a risk I
Nobody.
don't want to take, and they sure as hell don't want to take with
Yeah,
their live
yeah,
arrival guarantee.
that's good. So then you'll just drive out there and pick them up.
Yeah.
That'll be good. Maybe you should do that with all of your fish from Dan's, unless you get them in your winter, because
Yeah, anytime
it's so hot for you.
in the summer, it's just bad.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll be really hot here, but like Wyoming didn't get the memo that it's summertime and
Yeah,
they have to use a heat pack to get it out of Wyoming.
and it's not that hard to drive to the UPS store. I'm sure it's pretty close to your house. It's
And
worth
it's
it.
fine. It's
Yeah.
it's worth it, especially
No.
for $400 worth of fish.
Oh my God, nobody wants dead fish. Like, I would totally drive for dead fish to keep from having dead fish. So, but I get my packages in the morning unless something happens. So, speaking of something happening, Nancy B, was it last week or the week before, tried to send me eggs for rice fish eggs for my pond. She sent them to Scotty and I think to Rico, and they got theirs and they're doing great. Well, my package didn't show up and we were kind of nervous about it. And I'm really close to Nancy. Like, we don't live that far apart. They sent them back to her house and it said insufficient postage.
What?
But she went to the post office. Like, she didn't put stamps on a box. Like, she went to the post office, she paid with her credit card, they gave her a receipt. So, like, if they didn't tell her the sufficient amount, so
Yeah, that seems like
yeah,
it's on them. Did the box gain weight on the journey there?
no. And they were not in good shape when they opened up because they sat on her hot porch because she was at work. So
That
it's
sucks.
so, oh my God, so annoying. So I think she's gonna try again. Hopefully it'll go a little better because rice fish are really sturdy.
So yeah, AR mini,
Pretty slow.
slowish,
For a
needs
stem,
CO2 or soft water.
for a stem, pretty slow.
Bulbitis with CO2, it'll really take over, but
Yeah.
without CO2, it seems to just do nothing.
Well, yeah, it does nothing at all. The funny thing is I really think, like, so the graph of exponential growth, how it goes like this, nothing, 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 nothing,
then
nothing,
you-
nothing. Oh my God.
Mhm.
So that's what it does. Like, you put it in your tank and you're like, it's not really doing much. It's not really doing much. And then you turn around one day and you have a trash bag full of it. And that
Yeah.
happens all the time when you have CO2. And I have literally pulled out whole trash bags of it. And the last of it I shipped off to Johnny. And I think he put it all in one tank on one line.
Yeah,
Like,
and he just left it in a
spread that
big
among
clump.
10 tanks. And he's like, I'm not moving it. So,
It looked nice, all bushy and big clump together.
yeah, I would have spread that out, but I really was just glad to get rid of it. Yeah. Oh, so Nancy says she never stickered the box. She didn't put the sticker on. Oh, but new eggs are on the way. Yay. Thank you,
good.
Nancy. They have a pond that is teeming with food for them. They will be ready to eat.
Little
So
mosquito larva.
oh god. Yeah, I have in all my ponds, I always put broken up mosquito dunks, which have the bacteria Bacillus thuringiensis in
Hmm.
them, and that interferes with the larvae metamorphosing to adults because I'm terrified of mosquitoes. I'm so sensitive to them. So I put it in every pond, even if it has goldfish in it, which I have baby goldfish this year.
Oh, really? Have
At
they
least
never bred for
two.
you before?
Well, I never feed my goldfish, so I'm sure they've bred, but
We just haven't seen them. Yeah,
I have
that's cool.
two, and they're about an inch, inch and a quarter long. At least two, maybe more. And that's because at the
Huh.
beginning of the season, I had horrible hair algae in that pond, and I guess they hid. So I have two more goldfish, which is cool because I only have four of them. So I have room for two more.
So they obviously had a lot to eat. Must be extra mosquito-y this year.
Oh God. No, I think they just had a lot of room to hide. I think the fry could hide. I think that's what it was. But yeah, we've had so much rain here. Yeah, it's gonna be mosquito. It's gonna be awful.
You're not a
Leave
fan of
it
this
alone.
one, but
No,
I have a
not
love-hate relationship with
yeah.
Bucephalandra.
I would only hate it. Really, I just don't like the way it looks, and it's an algae magnet.
It surely
Really,
is
an
an algae
algae
magnet because of how slow it grows.
But I mean, other plants that are slow growers don't attract hair algae. I don't know why it does. Like
Yeah,
Anubias nana petite is just about as slow, and it has a similar habit, but it does not attract hair algae. It gets some like a little bit of green spot, but it doesn't
yeah,
get
green
hair
spot,
algae.
blackbeard if you're not like keeping it clean.
I don't
But
get
yeah,
blackbeard algae in this water. Knock on wood. I've had blackbeard algae at other times in my life.
I have it in
But
some tanks. It's not out of control in any of my tanks. Really,
yeah.
it's mostly confined to the spray bars.
Oh, that's interesting. That's not so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe I have a tiny bit of a. No, no, I don't. I just don't get blackbeard algae, but I get hair algae.
Nancy says you're becoming quite the fish breeder.
I've bred two kinds of fish now, only in my ponds. And this week I am putting my glow light Danios outside because I think those tubs are nice and ready. They've got a little green water to them, so there should be plenty of live food for them. They should be cycled. I don't really worry about cycling with ponds because 20 glow light Danios in 100 gallons just doesn't matter for
Yeah.
bioload. So,
So you can finally break down that tank then.
yeah, I need to get plants though to redo it, and I need a good amount of tissue cultures.
Mm.
So the store I get them from, maybe they can special order some for me, or I mean the co-op has tissue cultures, and I did see some that I would want, but I don't know.
They
I have
seem
to
to
think
be
about
adding
how I
them
want
a
to
little
do
bit.
it.
I
Yeah,
guess they're popular if they sell.
yeah. I have a ton of
Hi,
shrimp in there too, and I think that I'll throw some of the shrimp in these tanks. Some of them will make it. Some of them will be eaten by rainbows, but it'll be enough to keep the colony going.
a
So,
new name in chat. Steve says good evening all from the UK.
well, hello,
Welcome.
Steve.
Feel
Late night
free
for
to
you.
feel free to ask any
Yeah,
plant questions you have
yeah. I love all these new people we're getting in the past few weeks. It's
for
great.
sure. So
So,
yeah,
and
boosts. I like the mini boosts a lot, and
yeah,
it I like it enough to tolerate the infuriation of having to remove hair algae from it. Even in my bowl that has no KH because I have no fish in there, so I'm just like, well, screw it. I'm not gonna have the KH in there at all, and just like, and I also have like the CO2 on turbo mode, and it's
yeah. Still,
still growing hair algae.
it's a good thing I really don't like the way it looks that much. I mean, it's not that I think it's ugly. I just think that Anubias looks a lot better.
I like the variety because they different
Yeah, it
shaped
does have
leaves.
a lot of variety. It does have a lot of variety. However, if you set up a tank with like $200 worth of boost and no fast growing stems, you're in for a world of hurting. I've done it. It's over there. It's ugly. I mean, yeah.
So
All
Steve
right.
wants to know, should adding fert to a tank raise the nitrate content as mine still zero?
Good. I mean, it depends on what ferts you're adding. If your ferts have nitrate in them, so if you're using something like Easy Green or Tropica ferts, they have nitrate in them. They should raise your
But
nitrate.
Tropica
However,
does make different kinds. Like
they do.
Tropica makes one that just has micros and potassium in it. So you have to look at which one you're buying.
Right. Or like if you're buying ferts that are just potassium phosphate, well,
Hmm.
that's not going to raise it. I mean, I can add ferts to mine and they don't stay up very long because my tanks chew through ferts because I have a ton of immersed grown houseplants. So I add ferts pretty much every day. But so it should raise it depending on what your ferts are. So look at your bottle,
Aquascaper
the
Complete.
ingredients.
What is that?
I don't know that one. Maybe that's a British or European brand that we don't know.
Looks like from evolutionaqua.com. Aquascaper Complete plant food. It has nitrogen, phosphorus. It's got the NPK. It looks
Wonder
like
if
it's a
it's really dilute. I wonder if it's so watery that it doesn't make much of a difference. I guess I would really suggest the Tropica line if you want an all-in-one and is available in your country. I know that one works. And they have a formula that's a complete one that has nitrates in it. So if you wanted to try something different, that's what I would recommend. I haven't used it myself, but it does come very highly recommended. And I know it's available in your shops.
yeah. And then of course, like make sure that whatever you're using to test nitrates is working.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. The test kits, they're not the greatest always.
Yeah, like Zen said, try testing a bucket of water with the ferts in it to see if there's any base nitrates before plants. Just to
Yeah.
make sure somehow your plants are not just like sucking them up
Yeah, just test the
immediately.
ferts themselves. Like if you have like the strips, put one of the strips in the ferts. Like if you're not detecting any nitrates in that, then either your test kit's bad or your ferts are bad or weak. One of my favorite plants.
Corinum calamostratum.
I've got one right here. That big octopus going out that way.
And that's 3 years of growth, you said? Or something like that?
Almost 4.
4 years.
Oh yeah, in August it'll be 4. So yeah, it's a slow one. So it does almost nothing the first 6 months you plant it, and this is with CO2. It doesn't, and you don't need CO2 to grow this plant. It'll be even slower without it, but you don't need CO2, but you can't move it because if you move it, it restarts the clock.
Mm.
However, this plant does eventually get very big, and mine is like a stalk of celery right now. It's so thick. Yeah. But it's slow. It's slow, and it will attract algae on the leaves if you have algae. I've seen what's it called? Staghorn algae on it. But my Siamese algae eaters keep that in check.
Is it very finicky about lighting? Like, can you just kind of tuck it in the shade, or does it need some?
No, it's not finicky. I mean, it will grow toward the light, and it doesn't need super high light tanks. I mean, I do fertilize it. I mean, I put root tabs under there, but I remember my substrate has a good cation exchange capacity. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's slow. And if you're the sort of person who likes to move around your plants every single day, Brooklyn Bell, cough, cough. This is not.
That's me too. Whenever I'm doing water changes.
You've got to think about where you put it. and you got to never move it. And
That's
honestly,
why I
like
haven't bought one yet, because
you need to
I
put it
don't
in
know.
a pretty big tank too. I would say a 75, maybe a 55 would be okay because it gets pretty long. But I had it in a 29 once. No.
So Steve's got the API, that master test kit. I mean, I haven't used that nitrate test in a while, but I've heard like it's not the greatest. But usually I think the issue with that one is that it tests high. So
Yeah.
and then yeah, TDS meter. I won't go into that.
Yeah. So Nancy says that she doesn't like to move plants and hers in her 55 is doing well. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because you want a 4 foot long tank because the leaves get really long. So you think about where you want to put it and you just don't move it. But if you're the sort of person who really likes to move your plants, which Matt says he thinks that's insane. I mean, I moved some of my plants, but I never moved that one. Like I thought about where I wanted it and I've never moved it. I mean,
Tell you
someday
what's a
I'll move
bitch
it.
and a half to do is grow out a bunch of crypts that you have no idea which is which and how tall they're gonna get, and then let them root and establish and start propagating, and then you're like, oh, I guess this needs to move in the back, and
Yeah,
then you
and
end up like uprooting half the
that's
tank.
why I got rid of my crypts. My big crypts, like my spiralis and my balancy. I got rid of them. But I
Yeah.
still didn't move this plant. I moved everything around it, but I didn't move this. So Nathan had a question higher up.
Oh.
I've
Oh,
mentioned
have
it
we?
before in chats, but have y'all, chat included, ever used the brand Landon for fertilizer, iron, and beneficial bacteria? I have used Landon Pond fertilizer, and I like it. I know that I've known people who've used Landon's aqua soil, and it's a very good product from what I've heard. I haven't personally used it. I don't know anything about their fertilizer. I would have to check their stats. I only buy complete liquid fertilizers. So if it's one where you have to pump in stuff separately, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I used to be. I got lazy though.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to add things separately, I'm going to dose dry. Like if I'm going to do the work of adding separate things, I'm going to just use dry fertilizer. But I really like the ease of an all-in-one.
Yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
don't know that
even
brand. I don't know anyone who's used it. As for beneficial bacteria, I really would only use beneficial bacteria setting up my very first tank. But now if I want to set up a tank, I would use like filter squeezings from an established tank. I
yeah,
think
like live
so
bacteria.
much better because those products, I mean, as someone who has a lot of experience with keeping bacteria, there's no way stores are keeping that bacteria in good shape. Like it gets
Yeah,
shipped, it's not shipped refrigerated. People don't in stores, like I guess sometimes it's stored in a fridge, but
I've
like the
never
shelf
seen it in
life,
a fridge.
yeah. So it's like I think you're just adding a bunch of organic waste to your tank. So, which bacteria can grow in organic waste, but I mean, you have other tanks, so I wouldn't bother. Like Nathan, like I would just use your existing filter squeezings. All right, Zenny asks, if I were to move one of these crinums, oh my god, you have more than one in a 40. Yeah, a 40 is too small for a crinum. And I don't think really there's ever a need to have two crinums in a tank unless it's like a 200-gallon tank. Because they're really big. You want to move it to a deeper tank with no gas. What are the chances it ever makes a comeback? I think it will, as long as you don't. The issue is that it can become damaged. So the very first time I tried to grow Crinum calamostratum, I bought it from a company and it got these like red lesions on the bulb and it just rotted and died. So if it's pretty healthy when you pull it and you replant it, it should be fine. It's just not going to do anything for 6 months.
Yeah, so
So
just
I think
plant
it'll be
it and
okay.
forget about it for a while.
Yeah. And it doesn't need CO2. but it's not going to do anything for 6 months. It's not going to do anything for 6 months if you put it in a tank with CO2.
So they grow additional bulbs. What's the
Yeah, it will put off a bulb, and mine probably does too. But to get to those, I have to rip out a whole bunch of stuff that I just am not willing to do. Gary Lang, the famous rainbow guy, he has like a 200-gallon tank in his basement, and he has massive crinum, just a monster crinum, and he periodically will sell the divisions from it on like Aquavid. So, and I probably could pull divisions out too, but I have to rip out my whole aquascape to do that. And right now it looks really good, so I don't want to do that.
Parva, crypt parva?
Slow. If you want a lot of crypt parva in your tank, you should just shell out the money and buy it.
Yep, just buy it.
I know, but I love it. I love crypt parva, and the plant that's really similar to it, Crypts lucens. I like both of them. They're both really pretty. I love them for aquascaping purposes. I have tons of them in this tank. But it's slow, so slow.
There's apparently a smaller variety of parva called Parva Mini.
I have heard that also.
I bought a tissue culture of it, and it's so small that it doesn't even exist in my tank anymore. It melts it away.
You know, I think that like if you had a new tank that would work out in, but like if I tried to grow a tissue culture of crypt parva in this tank, it would just get swallowed.
Yeah.
It would just get swallowed by the Marsilea. But I love this plant. It's easy to grow. You don't need CO2, but even with CO2, it's going to be a little faster. But it's slow, so slow, but so pretty. So pretty.
Kerosene says 50-50 chance my basic 75-gallon tank crinum got accidentally pulled up and is recovering fine.
Yeah, it should be just fine. It's just gonna stop. You know, it's just gonna not do anything for 6 months. I mean, it's fine.
So Landon Ferts, they don't post what's in it on the bottle. I thought you were legally required to do that.
Well, you know, they are. You know, and anytime you buy a terrestrial fertilizer like Miracle Grow, or even an organic fertilizer for your veggies, or your potting soil that has fertilizer in it, it always lists the NPK. And I've got like a bottle of Easy Green right here, and it says NPK 2.66-0.46-9.21. So that's 2.66% nitrogen, 0.46% phosphorus, and 9.21% potassium, which is what you're supposed to do. And I really wouldn't buy anything that didn't have that label. And it also lists the ingredients. Yeah. It also lists like the guaranteed amount of a bunch of trace minerals too, which is really nice. And I believe Nylac G also has that, which is why I've used Nylac G and I do recommend it. I think Tropica has that information. So I just wouldn't use anything that didn't have that. It should be on their website. CChem, I don't think has that, and you're paying for really dilute fertilizer. So I would not use that.
Yeah, it bothers me that CChem doesn't have any comprehensive fertilizer. Like all of their stuff is split off, and they act like it gives you control. Like, well, I don't know if we need that much control.
I mean, if you want that level of control, and that's fine that you do, you should just dose dry.
Yeah,
and then you know exactly what you're putting in, and it's dirt cheap. And if you're on a budget and you have a lot of tanks, don't be afraid to dose dry. There are calculators on the internet. You can buy a little set of measuring spoons. It's very easy. I have done it before. You know, it's great if you're on a budget. It works. But I am very lazy and not on a budget like I was in grad school. Everybody is still on a budget, but I was on a different budget in grad school. So this is Lagonandra meboldii red variety.
I have some of this. Doesn't look nearly as good as what this photo is portraying, but
So
it's
slow.
alive. It grows slower than any Anubias. In CO2, it grows slower than an Anubias without CO2. It's
I think that
ridiculous.
low pH does help that one, but you and I
Maybe so.
don't have particularly low pH.
It's
So
surviving.
yeah, you sent me some and it melted back like crypt, like because a lot of ways it's kind of like a crypt, and it
Yeah.
melted back. And I don't think it's coming back because I think the Marsilea just outcompeted it. So yeah. So Nancy B says she has crypts that look like that, meaning the parva, but she thinks they're lutea. They do look similar, and they look exactly the same as when she planted them over a year ago.
Yeah, at least they're not dying though. It's just kind of like
Yeah.
it's like buying a fake plant essentially. It's not going to do
For
anything.
a while from the co-op, you could get really great looking lutea. Haven't bought from there. I just haven't bought from there in a while. So, but I know that when I was buying them, you would get really big plants, and that's a crypt that doesn't melt. I know there are lots of people who are like, "Oh, I just cut my crypts back before I plant them." Like, don't do
I wait until the leaf is looking like it's not gonna
yeah, don't do
make
that.
it. Like,
Yeah, because the thing is like the plant before it melts back, it is doing some good for those establishing roots. And lutea never melts. And if you trim off those leaves before you plant it, oh man, you're not going to have a plant that looks that good for, I don't know, a year, 2 years. Like, and the immersed grown and submersed grown don't look any different from what I've seen. So I guess if you're, I think it would be really interesting. Maybe Coralworks should try this because he has his immersed grown set up. Try to grow a bunch of immersed grown lutea. See if you can make yourself a bunch of it, and then have a whole foreground of it. It would look great.
or sell it.
Or sell it. You know, it's a good way to make some money because, like, I would pay money for a big clump of that. And the immersed and submersed look no different. It converts so well. So Lagodandra meboldii. I love that plant. It's so
Yeah, me too.
beautiful. So beautiful. Hard to find. I mean, you can find tissue cultures of it, but like I look for it on auction every now and again, and it doesn't come up that often because it's so slow, but really pretty. I mean, there's redder versions, there's pinker versions, but super slow.
Yeah, I think it does require a good bit of light too. Probably what it's lacking for me.
And it really, I don't know that I would try that one without CO2 just because it's so slow.
Let's see the spelling. Let me make sure I got this right before I. Okay, here we go. Oh, Jenna got it.
What were you
Also,
doing, Jenna?
Jenna asked if we could mention that there is a Fishfam link stream tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's another giveaway stream like the monthly giveaways. This one is a gift card to KJE.
Nice. He's got a
And
lot of pond plants. Pretty cool. So if you're looking for pond plants, I mean, or other things, fish food, botanicals, plants. That's cool. Oh, another thing I wanted to announce. If you are near Vancouver, Washington, and can help Lady R out, she wants to pick up a canoe that she's getting off Facebook Marketplace, and she has no way to transport it. So, if you could help her out, she wants to turn it into a pond, and I want this for her
oh,
because
that'd be
I
cool.
I want to see it. It would look so
Yeah.
cool. So if somebody could help her out, that would be great because she cannot get it in her tiny car. So if you have a truck or you can strap it to your car, Corowork says he would offer, but I ride a bike. Well, come on, Coro, like get a bike trailer. My sister has she has a cargo bike and she has hauled kayaks on the with her bike because she's a little trailer for her kayak, but she's a really lightweight kayak, and she will take it to the lake.
Kenny E just bought a new truck.
Well, there you go.
Sounds like it's fate.
That's right. So Lady R, if you're listening, get a hold of Kenny E. I bet he would love to help you. So, because he too would like to see a canoe pond. Because it would be really cool.
For sure. So Luke said Laganandra carolensis is quite nice also. So I just
Oh, I
Googled
don't
that.
know that plant.
It
That's
looks
a
very
new one.
crypty.
I mean, I like things that look like crypts, including crypts. Neat. I know there are other Laganandras that are good terrarium plants. And Laganandra meboldi might do better in a terrarium. So.
Hey, Vibes. Thanks for the $1.99 super chat. And yes, I did. I just I saw it right before we went live. Didn't get a chance to respond. But yeah, essentially, I would love to. Vibes is doing a June birthday stream. Like, is his birthday?
Nice.
But he's at 7 p.m. Central. He is streaming at his usual time on Thursday with people who were also born in June, including me.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, I'll join the group.
Your birthday's at the end of the month, isn't it?
21st.
That's right. What day of the week is that?
Friday.
Oh, so you'll be doing mixed streaming on your birthday.
Yeah.
That's good. I was hoping we would do Wet Your Plants on your birthday. That would be fun. Oh, well.
It's also, I share a birthday with one of Zen's daughters, and she's been giving her a daily update of when her birthday is. So she just said, Steven's birthday is in 11 days. Are we all aware?
That's great. Oh, and Vibes gave you another super sticker. Thank you, Vibes.
Thanks, Vibes.
So Scotty says that Annette should take her booze truck and do it for Lady R. That could be a good girls outing. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Because between the two of you, you could get a canoe loaded up. You could do it. June asks what you want for your birthday, Steven. I kind of think you already got it. You just got puffers.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
I think that's a pretty good birthday present. Those are expensive. What else do you want?
Scotty, I must have missed a question. Where? Oh, here we go. Now that I have my CO2 40 breeder set up, I need to figure out what plants I want. Anyone have a good way to segregate plants so they don't get mixed up?
I mean, they don't get. I mean, what's to segregate? Like my plants, I know what's what. Like, I mean, I don't understand the problem. Plants look different.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're like getting a million types of boosts and putting them together, that's kind of a problem.
Okay, that's a problem. Sometimes crypts, they can get mixed up. But what you should do is before you add a plant, take a picture of it, note down what it is on that picture, and then just plant it and live your life. And then when you pull it, you can look at your pictures and be like, oh, this is blah, blah, blah.
Keep a spreadsheet. I wish I had the discipline to do that.
I don't really care enough to do that. And I guess I know what my plants are. I mean, I can usually remember. Oh, this is a slow one.
The Aflame.
One growing. Echinodorus Aflame. It does not get very tall. It gets about 7 inches tall. Here it is right here. I have another couple clumps of it. It does not do much. I would not grow it without CO2. But it has that really great, like super deep purple color. And the bright green petioles. And
how long have you had it?
Stems. I bought it in the fall. And it barely grows. But it never gets tall. It's pretty. I would not grow it without CO2. Maybe it would do better if I had really low KH water, but I don't. I have KH of 6. I do
Time to get an RO unit.
I mean, where am I going to store the water?
In your next house.
That's correct. In the next house, there will be a 200-gallon rainbow tank, and there will be salt water, and there
Oh
will be
yeah, you still
RO
got that 70 something gallon.
on my porch. It's on my
It's
front
waiting for
porch.
you.
I know Prudence sometimes likes to take a nap in there.
Nice.
So it's not going to waste. It's being used by a scruffy cat.
Yeah, so Luke said his flame is not that slow, so it must be a hard
Must
water versus soft
must
water
be.
situation.
Yeah, and this is what I've got. I mean, KH is 6, just how it is. So it'll
So
probably be better.
Steve says in his tank he has bulbitis, some buces, I think you meant Anubias,
Yep.
and limnophilas, Lobelia cardinalis mini, Ludwigia repens Ruben, Bacopa caroliniana.
It's a good
What
mix
to get?
slow and fast.
And if he's asking want to get or what to get, a few more plants.
I don't see any
Crypts.
crypts on that list.
Yeah,
There
you're
you
lacking
go.
crypts
You're lacking crypts, and all crypts are great.
for
I love
sure.
crypts. Yeah, so get some crypts. You could a good foreground plant to try. This is my favorite foreground is Marsilea,
Mhm.
either Crenata or Hirsuta. Either one is fine. Um, it grows better with CO2. It's pretty fast with CO2, but not obnoxiously so. But it will grow without it, and it never gets super tall, and it looks great. It looks great.
This is a fantastic question from QC Aquaholic. All these plants that require CO2, how do they get all their CO2 in
Well,
nature?
all plants require CO2. There are no plants that don't require
Yeah, when
CO2.
we say require CO2, it means it requires CO2
Yeah,
injection beyond what is
right.
naturally dissolved in your tank from organics breakdown and fish respiration and things like that.
Yeah, and there have been studies done of like natural environments that have a high density of um, uh, aquatic plants growing completely submerged. So, like the
Mm.
Pantanal in Brazil. I think that, yeah, it's in Brazil. And they have tested the parts per million of CO2, and it's like 20 or 30, which is what I get injecting CO2. So they're naturally high in it. There are springs that bubble up CO2 from the earth, so like limestone springs. I've seen that happening in Wisconsin, for instance, in the lakes there, natural springs. So it can happen. And you also have to understand how we keep plants is very, very artificial. With very few exceptions, plants don't want to grow underwater. They'll start underwater and they want to grow up
Yeah,
out of the
they
water.
go into survival mode during the
Right.
wet season when they're completely flooded.
Right. But once they grow out of the water, they tend to lose all their submerged leaves
Hmm.
and just grow their terrestrial form of leaves with their feet wet. And that's because then they have all the CO2 they want. All plants need CO2. Anyone who's out there saying, "Oh, plants don't need CO2." No, they all need CO2. It is the definition of being a plant. With the exception, well, there is an exception. There's some parasitic plants that don't have any chlorophyll. So like ghost pipe, it's not an aquatic plant though. But it has a parasitic relationship with fungi. So
Yeah, and Luke said if you had a literal waterfall in your tank, you'd probably not require pressurized CO2 injection either if you have low KH water. Otherwise, any
you
like
have right.
naturally occurring CO2 is facing that equilibrium with
Yep.
KH and
Yep.
it's going to be overtaken.
Exactly. And that's why our friends who have naturally low KH water can get away with so much more. So if
I
you
have
have
been
0 or 1 out of the tap, you really don't you can get away with a lot.
I'm actively working on the KH, GH, pH video right now, and I've been neck deep
Awesome.
in studying all that stuff. Like
Awesome. Let me know
But
if you need help with that too.
oh, for sure. I'm sending you the script when I'm done with it.
Yeah, I'll help you vet it to make sure.
Yeah.
Well, not to make sure, like I trust you, but like to
But yeah, there is a
that way.
crap ton of information, and any
Yeah.
new I want to make sure that every nuance that I put in there is correct. And so,
Yeah, I mean, because it's a lot about equilibrium constants and
yep.
pKa and all the things that you do when you learn college chemistry. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So Corework says, Kelly, water doesn't have to be stored in round tubs. I mean, I guess you're right.
What?
But if I get RO water, I've got to put it somewhere. I
Yeah.
could have square tubs, but like I don't know where. I mean, because all of my water for my aquariums now comes out of my small bathroom, which is where I do water changes from. It's just a bathroom with a sink and a toilet. It's not doesn't have a tub or anything. It's really tiny. I don't have room for a water reservoir in there, and I don't have any room for like a trash can or anything of water in my dining room. I don't have a closet. I do have a closet. I have a broom closet. I could put it in, but I like to put a lot of junk in that closet. So, where would I put my junk? So,
Gotta have a hoard pile somewhere.
I know. All right. Jenny says if I wanted to move a couple of these babies and kill them, how long do I wait and kill them? Or what size, how many should I have before I go trying to disconnect them? I would not move them.
Yeah, I would be so paranoid.
I would not move them. I mean, you could move them. I would wait until they were as big as the mother plant, but I would not move them. I would just let my clump slowly get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I would, because I had a gorgeous clump of flamingo with tons of babies and I moved it and it died. So don't
I
move
didn't
it.
even move mine, and it died.
Don't move it. Like just don't. That's our advice. Don't move it. But you can move it if you want. You don't have to listen to us. So
Scotty.
Scotty.
Any sellers you suggest or don't suggest on Plan to Take quick auctions, they're all pretty reliably.
Yeah, I've had really great luck. So my favorite is a woman named Limei, Limei. She lives in Brooklyn.
That's who he's
However,
referring to.
pretty much everything she sells is a little bit more rare and fussy plants. She doesn't really sell a lot of common easy plants. I mean, some of the plants I've gotten from her, I haven't done well with because they need low pH water. Brooklyn has KH1 out of the tap. But I think she's great. I think she's amazing. Everything from her is really high quality. I know Mike would agree. Our dearly departed friend Myrtle got many things from her. So I do recommend her. I've gotten other things from other people there too, and I've had great luck. I've had great communication. I've gotten stuff from Gary Lang off there. This guy, Matt Kowalczyk, I just got stuff from him. It was great. He's the one who packed it with sheet music. I really like that.
I think it gets around really quickly if a seller is not up to par on a site on a
word
group like
gets
that.
around. And Limei is like one of the biggest sellers on Plant to Take quick auction.
But should Scotty get high grow SP
No.
chai from Limei?
No, you should. Well, I mean, here's the thing, Scotty. Do you have a sink in your basement yet? No, you don't. So should you be taking your cash and throwing it out the window when you don't have a sink in your basement? Scotty, no woman wants to be with a man who has 200 tanks in his basement and no sink. No woman wants that. No woman wants that. Get a motherfucking sink for your motherfucking basement.
Nice. I'll say I got high grow chai from Luke, and I kept it alive in distilled water in aqua soil for about 3 months, and then the Rotala willickii around it grew up, and I neglected it and forgot about it, and it shaded out the chai, and the chai was bye-bye.
High grow chai is a very, very advanced plant. You don't even know the KH of your water, right, Scotty? Do you know the KH of your water? I don't
Hopefully.
know that you do.
Kelly has strong sink opinions.
I do, and
It
I would
should be pretty
love.
easy to install a sink in a basement, though. I mean, you don't like all the plumbing
Right.
is just right there for access.
Right. And I would just really call upon all the viewers of Wet Your Plants to help out our fellow friend in need, Scotty, by encouraging him to put a sink in his basement. Because here's the thing, Scotty is not doing water changes for his fish because it's hard. And you know
So
why it's
super
hard? 'Cause
chats
he
and
doesn't understand.
memberships to his channels and just label them as sink fund.
That's right. So encourage Scotty, some peer pressure to put a sink in his basement. If you live local to Scotty and you have plumbing skills, maybe you could help him. You know, maybe you could help him put in a sink. And now I want him to test his water too. You know what? So for
Mhm.
certain plants, you don't need to test your water for. If you said to Stephen, hey, I want to grow Hygrophila polysperma. Do I need to test your water? Stephen would
Is it
say,
wet?
I mean, that's important.
Water's
But
got to be
for
wet.
hydro chai, if you don't even know your KH, don't waste your money because
Here's
it's gonna die.
here's a guy who knows his KH. Steve said my pH 7.6, GH 14, KH 7. That's
That's about
pretty average water.
you're pretty average. I mean, I have a KH of 6. Steven has a KH of 6. I can't
7.
grow high grow. Oh, you have 7. I have 6.
Yeah.
I can't grow high grow chai in my water. And I would
Yeah.
say even if you have KH of 0 out of the tap or you're using our water, it's really a hard plant.
Yeah, and the GH
So,
is high, but it's like not GH just kind of doesn't really matter.
so
Even for
Luke
most of my fish,
mentioned
doesn't matter.
Luke mentions it grows decently well in a paludarium setting, and that makes sense because
Yeah.
then it has uh limitless CO2.
Yeah, then at some point you got enough to take the gamble with it underwater.
Yeah. So, but it's a pretty hard plant. It's pretty hard.
Mhm.
I I don't recommend that plant for you, Scotty. But Steven has some plants that he does recommend for you. Like Hygrophila polysperma sunset. That's a good plant. Or like Rotala rotundifolia. That's a good plant.
Most of the plants I put on the member plant form are weeds because that's if I'm trying to send plants to dozens of people, weeds is a good way to make sure there's enough.
Crypts are good.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some crypts that aren't good, like flamingo. Yeah.
No, but like I'll send you 2 sprigs of Crypspiralis and you'll have plenty of spiralis in no time.
Yeah. It's pretty vigorous. But don't waste your money on chai. In general, I don't know that there are too many plants I would recommend you buy from Lee May. They're a little fussier. And I don't
Mhm.
recommend you spend a single dollar on your hobby until you put in a sink. So there. So Corework says that Ludwigia is a pretty weed, but less so than Hyro Sunset. Yeah, I would say that like Ludwigia repens, that's a good easy plant.
Mhm.
And you don't even need CO2 to grow that. That's a pretty easy plant. And he says, weeds are just plants where you don't want them. Even flamingos, Kelly. I don't think anyone has ever been like, oh, I
Get
wish I
that
didn't have
flamingo out of
all
here.
these flamingos. But I mean, I did have flamingos in a place I didn't want them and I moved them. That's when they died. That's when they died. Luke says Setioides is even more finicky. Yeah, I mean, there are some Ludwigias like Pentanal. You need really low pH water for that. And there's a couple others that are fussy, but like Ludwigia repens or Arcuata X repens. Those are pretty easy.
See, now this confuses me a little bit. So Steve said out of the tap, his water is pH 6.8, nitrate 5, GH 15, KH 10. With KH that high and pH that low, that suggests that your tap water has some dissolved CO2 in it. I'm wondering
Um,
what happens to the KH when it's like after you've added it to your tank, or something
I
else
mean,
is going
what it
on.
suggests to me is with a pH of 6.8, there's something else lowering the pH besides dissolved CO2. There's organic acids, there's they could be lowering, I mean, it could have like anything, any acid, any source of H plus. Doesn't just have to come from carbonic acid.
But with the KH that high and the pH being that low is what gets me.
It is cut, yeah.
Because carbonic acid would retain the KH because it's like doing that swing back and forth equilibrium.
I mean, there is a relationship between KH and pH, but there are other things that can influence pH besides KH.
Right.
So, and the pH of this tank is being influenced by
And
something
it's
beside carbon.
right, but like when he adds it to his tank, his pH apparently rises and his KH lowers, based on his
So
other
there must
data.
be something. So there must be dissolved organic compounds lowering the KH. So it's pushing it toward that equilibrium. I mean, there are lots of natural buffers in your tank,
Mm-hmm.
and there are not lots of natural acids and bases that can change the equilibrium of your water. And also, measuring pH is not very accurate.
Yeah, that is tough.
Let's put it this way. I used to, in a lab, use a $10,000 pH meter, and I thought it was kind of shitty. So any home pH meter is just going to suck. And the tests are not super accurate. And
So
so,
if you were to calibrate a pH meter, if you measure, maybe it's not giving you the right number, but like a relative number, like could you more easily measure a change in pH versus the actual pH if it's calibrated?
I mean, any pH meter that doesn't have you calibrate it with a reference solution is not a good pH meter. When I worked in
Yeah.
the lab, we would always calibrate with at least 1 point, if not 2 points, using a reference buffer. You can buy reference buffers even on Amazon. They're very inexpensive.
Yeah.
Well,
I
where
just
says he hates all pH meters, especially the lab ones. I mean, they're not great. They're not great. The lab ones are better, but it's a lot of money.
Ludwigia sphaerocarpa. Yep, I fell for that one too, and killed that. But man, it was beautiful before it
Yeah,
died.
so it's funny. Ludwigias are either really easy or really, really hard. I mean, so they're just a lot of Ludwigias. So Zenny or I mean not Zenny, Oinky had a question. So she's currently using fluvalstratum, but not invested in any biostratum yet. In your opinion, is there an advantage or noticeable difference in biostratum? I've used both. I think the biostratum has a slightly finer grain. Maybe it's a little easier to plant in. I don't really think there's that much of a difference. I mean, I would buy the one that was cheaper.
Yeah,
I
I don't
bought
know if
some
there's a difference
biostratum because I got it for free.
from Shella.
Yeah. So I would not spend extra money on biostratum. It is a slightly finer grain and a little easier to plant in, but I don't think it's worth spending more money. How often do I do a water change? I try to do like 80% once a week. I'm going to change water in these tonight. I will admit sometimes life gets in the way and I skip a water change, but I can tell my fish aren't very happy. My plants aren't very happy with me. Rainbows are very sensitive to water quality. Plants love clean water. If I could do water changes 2 or 3 times a week, I imagine my tank would be even happier.
Yeah,
So water
and
changes are good.
I'm the same. I do weekly water changes of at least
Yeah.
50%. There are some tanks that I have that have hardly anything in them that I like. If I'm in a rush, I might skip. But like the ones I really try not to skip are my CO2 injected planet tanks, rainbow tanks.
Uh, I went like 5 weeks when I had COVID, just because I was so
Ugh.
sick. I just was just didn't have the energy to, and eh, it was not good. My things were not Not as happy. But you know what? I wasn't very happy either. So
Yeah.
it happens. But I would say it's a very good goal to try to do a large water change every week. Like knowing that life does get in the way, but your system will be happier if you do. So,
Here's another slow grower, Blixa.
yeah, I mean, if you give it a lot of CO2 and light, it will grow a bit faster. But it's pretty slow. Albertii is also slow. I tried Blixa Roban and that one died on me. I think that one needs lower KH water than I have. I got all of these from Lime. Great seller. Better water than I have. I mean, you know, because that Brooklyn water is just really easy to grow plants. And she's really talented. I mean, she grows a lot of species. So, but yeah, Blixa, I love it. It's not fast. Won't grow without CO2. I don't even think, even in low KH water, I don't think it'll grow without.
It's really finicky. Like I
It's
have some tissue cultures of it that are doing well, but I've definitely killed it before just by not paying attention, letting it shaded out.
it's fussy. It's fussy, but I love it. I love it.
And
Cypress
self-rise is slow down.
hyperi. I bought these from Osama from Atlantic Aquariums. They're tropical plants. They have done very well for me. I'll show you. So in the back there, the grassy plant. I'll have to look through all the rainbows because they're like, feed me, Kelly.
Hang on.
But beautiful plant, very slow growing. Very, very slow. I don't think I'd attempt this one without CO2 just because it's so slow. But, you know, the nice thing about it is I wanted a tall, grassy plant that was slow and that wouldn't send out about a bunch of runners.
Yeah, it wouldn't run across the tank where you didn't want it.
Yeah, it just stays put and it is really pretty and it has a really beautiful habit. But it's slow. It was slow. So but I do recommend that plant.
Yeah,
I don't think it's hard to grow if you have CO2. You don't need magic water. You just need time.
Yeah.
So
See, I think above Nancy was asking if I was looking to gather water data. Yeah, water data from all of us for science and or curiosity. Yeah, maybe. I was thinking about making a form. I worry what I would do with the data. Would it be reliable? Because if I'm asking people's pH, like, I don't know.
well, and it's just kind of funny because like, you know, people could look at it and be like, okay, if I move to Indiana, I'm going to have KH of 6. That's not bad. Well, Indianapolis is not that far from me. And so my water is about 125 ppm of, you know, TDS. And it's about 350. And most of that is KH and GH, you know, in Indianapolis, which is not that far from me. So the southern part of the state. And I've heard of people, you know, the next town over, their water will be really, really different. So, you know.
Yeah, my parents, 40 minutes away,
Yeah.
completely different water source.
Completely different. They have super soft water. So like it's different. Like if your water comes from the aquifer, it's going to be really hard. Whereas if your water comes from the river, it might be really soft.
So here's interesting thing about the water here. Our water is from an aquifer, the Southern Hills aquifer.
Okay.
But the water that, like, the source of that aquifer is very soft water, but then it combines with like feldspar and calcite, and it actually becomes very hard. But then as it moves south where we are, there's a whole bunch of clay in our soil. And so cation exchange takes out all of the minerals, and basically you're left with bicarbonate. I used to think that the water treatment facility actually added that to prevent corrosive, like
don't.
corroding the pipes. But no, it's naturally there.
Well, and your aquifers are not as deep as the ones in Iowa because the water table where you live in the swamp.
Yeah.
You know, like
Doesn't
people in Iowa have basements. Nobody has a basement where you live because you're all below.
Wouldn't be advisable. No.
You know, so our aquifers are really, really deep in the Midwest. In Fort Wayne, though, in Indiana, our water comes from the rivers. So when I lived in Iowa, it came from the aquifers. So very, very hard, very, very basic, very, very high KH, a lot of dissolved minerals, a lot of, you know, like when my tank would get low volume, I would get a hard water line. I don't get that here. So, but
Have a
that
good night,
water
Steve.
came from the limestone aquifers. So the Midwestern part of the United States is all an ancient sea. And during the Carboniferous period of geological history, the dominant animals all were like snails. You know, they had shells. And as they died, their shells would accumulate. And so, all, you know, if you dig down, there's tons and tons of fossils in Iowa from the Carboniferous, and they all became limestone. And that limestone, as it dissolves, it creates a lot of KH and GH in the water. It's very, very hard. So that's just what the Midwest is. It used to be an ocean.
There's so many water sources in the United States alone with different chemistries. I mean, there's like over 50,000 different public water companies and like tens of thousands of water treatment facilities that could do
different things.
Yeah.
In general, the coasts tend to have very low KH and GH water because it's runoff from rivers. And the water doesn't travel over land very far because they're near the coast. Or like if it's runoff from the mountains, it's very soft. So like where Johnny at Dan's Fish lives, so his tap water in Sheridan is very, very soft because that's runoff from the mountains. People who live in, Seattle, their water is runoff from the mountains. But if you live in Iowa, the water comes from the aquifer, very deep, and it runs through limestone, which is very hard. So there's kind of a general, but like Los Angeles is on the coast, and their water is crazy hard. Florida is made of limestone. Everything there is limestone. So it's very, very hard water.
I feel like I remember one time Master Breeder Dean was talking about where he lives, the water is very soft, but they actually do add a carbonate source to his water to prevent it from corroding the pipes. And I think he said something about like a 9 kH in his tap.
No, they add some. They raise the pH, but they don't raise the KH.
How do they do that?
There's other acids you can add. I mean, you could add. Adding other bases. There's other bases. I mean, the carbonate buffer.
He mentioned they add soda ash though. So this is just from secondhand. That's just why.
But I mean, I know
mentioned the KH specifically.
Water is super low KH. He's also said that. And he raised the pH. So maybe he said other things, but I'm pretty sure that he's mentioned that his water is really low KH out of the tap.
I'm gonna have to contact him because I'm actually very curious about that. I wonder if he'll respond.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he'd respond. Yeah. I'm sure he'd give you his water stats. So, but in general, in the Pacific, not all of the Pacific Northwest. I mean, if you live on the other side of the mountains, like in Western Oregon, I don't know what you have.
Yeah.
It's the desert. It's a very different climate. But I think the water would still be soft because it would still be mountain runoff. I don't know.
Vibes, thanks again for another super chat.
Oh, that was very nice of you. Happy early birthday.
And Oinky said, want to thank you for your advice about my Salvinia. 6 hours of light wasn't enough, went to 8 to 12 hours. And wow, you would have thought I had dropped an upper in the water. It went boom. And also doubled the amount of dry fertilizer.
Kind of low for a plant. I mean, even if I'm I guess since I have lights that are a little, these Fluval lights, they're controllable. I usually don't drop my photo period at all. I always keep it at 10 hours. I just drop the intensity, but I don't think I would go below 8 hours. Day length is very important to plants, mostly for determining when to bloom, but it is important. And, if you have plants that are from the tropics, they like 12-hour days. If you have plants from like North America, well, they may want even longer days than that. Because like the sun doesn't go down right in Indiana, which isn't even that far north, until like, I don't know, 9:30. I mean, our dates are really long right now. So 8 hours is a good adjustment, I would say, raising.
Yeah, I kind of start at 8 hours as like the
Yeah.
baseline whenever I set up a new tank for plants.
Yeah. I just kind of do 10, but I like to start low intensity and ramp up. And you can also like have the light, have it high above your tank and move it down. That's another way to do that. So Benjamin asks, I wonder what Mexicali's water parameters are. I don't know. That would be because he's in LA, right?
He's in Arizona.
Oh, Arizona. I don't know what they have there. But I mean, their water comes from the Colorado River. Pretty much everyone in Arizona, unless you're in the mountains. I think it comes from the Colorado River. But the Colorado River is really long and it runs over land a long time, so it can pick up a lot of minerals. I don't know. I know that a lot of the soil is crazy alkaline in parts of Arizona, but I mean, Arizona is a huge state, so
Yeah.
I don't know. We should ask him. We would have to ask him.
I have to force people to give me their parameters.
I guess. Steve has gone to bed. Good night, Steve.
Yeah.
Very late. Thank you for staying up to watch. But it is bedtime in England.
It is time for me to get back to work and eat some dinner.
Yeah, so. I'm pretty hungry. So, well, thank you everyone who gifted memberships and who super chatted. Thank you to our wonderful mods. You have done so well. Thank you, Jenna, for dropping all those plant names. Thank you everyone for being here and asking your questions. Thank you to our lurkers and our replay crew. And we'll see you next week.
Yep. Bye, everybody.